Did he really do it? Did he really turn water into wine? Did he take a little stroll on the Galilee River? Did he heal blind people? And then the biggie, of course, and we're in the season for it now, did he, in fact, do the number on the cross, die and then come back? Wow. And what I've been noticing recently is the compelling importance it seems to make to so many people who, are using Jesus as their guru. How important it is that he did, in fact, do those things. Because their sense is, and this was staggering to me, their sense is that if he didn't really pull that stuff off, then his ministry is, really suspect. His whole place in the pantheon of religious, prophets is questionable. It's really important that he did the magic. Jeez. I'm thinking, how can you disregard the earth presence of a being who introduced into the stream of human consciousness ideas that are so filled with grace and so filled with the power to empower you and I to move through this ever-changing flow of stuff and to do it with a lot of equanimity and grace and lightheartedness. For me, that was his heritage. He left with us a kind of indoctrination into the deep nature of things that revealed to us how we manage so consistently to turn the Garden of Eden into a rock and a hard place. It's not, and he taught us that. And so I would suggest that we maybe this morning discuss just one of those revolutionary ideas that he introduced into the stream of human consciousness. The idea that you can have something called unconditional love. The idea that refuted thousands of years of tradition. Ideas like, you want to know how to get it on out there in the world? I'll tell you how. The old Hebrew papa tells his kids, somebody pokes you in the eye, you poke them back. Somebody knocks your tooth out, you knock theirs out. It's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth out there. And that was extant in that culture for thousands of years. That's how you did it. Somebody messed with you, you mess with them more. And then here comes this, I guess a prophet you could call him, this nice guy, walks down the street one day and he said, got some people around him, if you can imagine, probably a gathering about like this. He says, it's been written. Your teachers in the synagogues have been telling you for years and years that it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And then he said a magical word for the first time in the stream of human consciousness. He said, but. It has been written, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say unto you, love those who would persecute you. Pray for those who would carry you away to do harm to you. Bless those who do evil to you. And then I can imagine how that must have landed on the consciousness of the people sitting there hearing it for the very first time. What? Something that flew so much in the face of all proven, societal ideas about how to get it on with each other. What is this thing he's talking about? What? The introduction of unconditional love into the stream of human consciousness for the first time. Can you imagine being there? This guy, what the hell is he talking about? This man must be crazy. Love those who would persecute you, pray for those. Then he goes on to make his case. He says, remember, don't you please remember this. The Father in heaven causes the sun to shine on the good and the evil, and the rain to fall on the just and the unjust. Be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. In that sense, in that deep and abiding sense, be ye perfect. Allow the sun, the warmth of your presence to fall on those who are in your neighborhood, regardless of what they're coming at you with. If they ask you to walk a mile, go 2 miles. He's referring in that instance to the Roman centurions who had the right to ask a Hebrew citizen to do anything in the world to assist them. And if you resisted, you could wind up on a cross. Say, hey, if they ask you to walk for a mile with their pack, take it 2 miles. No big deal. If somebody sues you at law and wins your coat, give them your shirt too. If somebody asks you for something, give it. Don't be attached to this stuff. This is not where it's at. But that idea of introducing into the stream of human consciousness a way of being with each other that was not dependent. You didn't have to earn my love. You didn't have to earn my caring by being a certain way, by being a way that I understood as accommodating my needs and preferences. You could even keep it going on with that person when they were so far out the window with behaviors it was just impossible for you to embrace. And he comes into a culture and starts to teach them a 180 flip on how to be with each other. Jesus, can you imagine? Can you imagine? And then I get in touch with that. I said, well, the grace of that is incredible. And then he gave us tips. He gave us teachings all through to help us begin to accommodate some of those. It's the requirements. It's the requirements. You want a life, you really want a life where you can go through this ever-changing flow of stuff and your breath continues to come easy as you're moving through it. And your mind's not all clouded with thoughts of revenge or, He says, here, try some of these ideas on. Lay up not for yourself treasure on earth, where moth and rust consume, and thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, nor thieves break through and steal. In that place where it is absolutely your own. It's your own private sanctuary of grace. That's where your treasure is. The peace and serenity that you can feel as a human being, that's what you want to give the most value to, the most significance. And don't do anything, gee whiz, don't do anything with your mind that would erase even a little bit of that peace and serenity. That's the gift you've got from God. Can you raise your hand and say, well, I did that as recently as yesterday? Sure, we're constantly doing it. The idea is, though, he introduced the notion that we have choice, that we have a choice. We don't have to surrender to vengeance and violence every time somebody comes along that hasn't read our script for the life. Okay? There's a beautiful teaching that comes out of the idea of remembering that everything we encounter as a human being is just another face of an ever-changing flow. And we have a tendency to insist that that flow of life show up in a certain way. We lay up treasure on earth. How many of you have laid up some treasure on earth, especially in the domain of treasuring behaviors? And you guys got some treasures in how you be treated? And how people talk to you, what they say, what tone of voice they say it in. Sure, we all do. And typically, when somebody doesn't accommodate our script, what kind of emotion do we create? And I say we create advisedly. They're not doing it to us. I'm doing it to myself over their inability or unwillingness to be with me according to the script I've written for them on how they've got to be with me. I do that all the time in so many arenas, especially in my car. Now, every one of us has the gospel of driving according to me. And you run into somebody who hasn't read the scripture. Son of a... And if you stop right in the middle of one of those tirades, just stop for a moment and take a breath. You can hear Jesus. You can hear it. Or Buddha. Or Krishna. You can hear them. Well, they wouldn't go oy vey. Not all of them. Jesus would. Oy vey. Anybody know what the Hindu equivalent of oy vey is? But they would be saying it. Trust me. When are they going to have to learn? When are they ever going to learn? And then that thing called forgiveness. Well, I'm not so concerned that Jesus may or may not have walked on water or did or didn't come back. But I am forever, forever grateful that he taught me that I don't have to carry the weight of vengeance and all that around in my heart forever and ever. One psychologist likens unforgiveness, resentment and hostility to a dog bite on your butt. It's like you're walking around just gnawing away all the time at you. And you don't have to do that. And he introduced us to the idea that you can forgive. Absolutely forgive people. Now, how the hell can you do that? Well, he gave us some tips, and then the beautiful natural arena out there gave us some tips too on why forgiveness is a doable kind of thing, how you can do it. If you remember this as you're moving through life, and I came across that this morning in my walk to the church. That's a little teeny tiny, what is it? A dandelion. Yeah, a little teeny tiny dandelion, just got started, and somehow it got dislodged from its source, and so it's laying there, but it said something to me. And this dandelion, about 10 years ago, became an eternal reminder for me. It became a symbol of you and me. A symbol of you and me that I find it very helpful to remember when I'm about to create a lovely, unimpeachable rationale for hating your guts. Take a breath, and I have to remember at that moment of experience we shared with each other that I identified thus was just one moment in your life. And here I am creating a relationship with you based on one instant in your life, completely ignoring all the other things that you've done with your life. It's just like the dandelion taught me that. We say, oh, that's a dandelion. It starts out as a little 7-leafed rosette, pops out of the ground, and then this little stalk comes up. And then you get a little thing going like that, and if it had been in the ground a lot longer, it'd be pretty tall. And then it goes through its cycle. It becomes a little puffball. How many of you have gone, and those seeds just spread all over the place, and here got a jillion other lives start from this thing, and it's all of that. It's a process. It starts and unfolds and unfolds. And then we have to ask ourselves a question. If somebody would ask you if you've ever picked a dandelion, what would you say? Anybody here ever picked a dandelion? Yeah. And I suggest, no, you haven't. Not really. Because you've only captured one instant in an unfolding process that is a dandelion. And in addition to that moment the dandelion was when you picked it, it had an infinite amount of experience as a living organism before, and now it's got an infinite additional experience as an organism cut off from one life source, but moving easily into what a dandelion becomes when you pick it. Point being, you can't pick a dandelion. It's a process. You can't pick a process. You can only capture one tiny instant of its total existence. The piece, you have that in your heads? You pick that dandelion and you've captured it at one instant in its life. And just so with us human beings. We grab an instant in each other's lives, and then we begin to pretend that that represents the whole existence of that human being. It's hard if you remember that. If you remember that, or when you remember that, it's very difficult to maintain a lot of animosity over time. Oh, there I go again, filling my heart with a lot of, gee whiz. Now, in addition to, and there's no question that people can be, each of us has the capacity to be incredibly indifferent to the needs of other folks, to be real dumb. But here comes Jesus along and saying, yep, and when you're done, it's not necessary to get your tooth knocked out. You can have some grace in this. And for God's sakes, if somebody's been dumb to you, don't, for Pete's sake, destroy the sweetness of a life that is based on peace and serenity that experiences that. Remember, we're all dandelions. You caught that person at a hard moment. Maybe you were asking an alligator to be a pussycat. Sorry. Now, as you ramble on through life, whatever be your goal, brothers and sisters, keep your eye upon the dandelion and not upon your ego. Okay? And next time you're carrying a grudge, remember, you're projecting onto that human being the notion, just like these folks are that insist Jesus walk on water. You're insisting that that being never enter into a piece of behavior that's contrary to some notion you have about what constitutes appropriate behavior and how unlikely that is to occur on a continuing basis. Okay? Got a little bit of that? All right. Bless you. Happy Dandelion Day. Okay, darling.